Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Dungeons& Dragons and Dungeons& Dragons competitors, all TTRPGs at this point, and the Winchester House problem. All right, so let's talk about the Winchester House. So the Winchester House is a house here in America. It's a moment. It's a historical artifact. It's real, and it was the house that was the family home of the Winchesters, right? And the Winchesters were they got rich in America by making the Winchester rifle. I believe they also did a lot of work with uh, gunpowder, right? So the Winchester husband dies, and they're millionaires at this point, right? And the Winchester wife lives on for quite a while after her husband dies, and she had some unusual thoughts about the house. She thought that the house was cursed, right? Cursed because their money was blood money, right? Like um, that, you know, the reason they made their money were these devices that people use to kill people or destroy things. She's like, oh, this is not good. So she believed that her home, the Winchester house, was cursed. But what would keep away the ghosts and would keep the curse at bay is if the house was always being expanded, if there was always construction in the house, right? So at minimum, she thought, oh, the work, the labor, a lot of banging, also, new construction, new life for the building itself, um, was, she thought that doing construction on the house would keep the curse at bay, which is a very unusual thought, right? But she took this really serious, and she did it. Um, she took this very seriously, and she never stopped construction on the house for the entirety of her life. She just kept doing construction on the house, right? And so she would do this construction on the house, and um, she kept paying for it, right? And they'd be like, well, what do you want, right? The construction, the foreman would be like, she's like, it doesn't matter, just keep it. And so they would build staircases to floors that didn't exist, hallways, that just ended, right? And so now the Winchester house looks really weird because there was all this construction that had no purpose in actually expanding the house to have new people live in it. The purpose was to stop a curse, right? So it's really odd. It's one of the oddest pieces of architecture in America, right? Well, the problem is we now have the Winchester house problem, that which exists, specifically exists on Dungeons and Dragons, the OSR, and the indie books. Okay, so basically, you create your tabletop role playing game, and what people have realized is that you've got to feed the beast, right? Dungeons and Dragons does this 3 to 5 times a year. They are now printing 3 to 5 256-page hardbacks, or replacing those with even longer slipcases, right? And so every year, and so at this point, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, you can't even run the adventures as fast as they're bringing them out, right? Like you can't run any of the adventures in the time period from one book to the next. It's not quick enough, right? Um, and so now we have this problem where, and OSR does it, and indie books do it. If you are successful and you are at scale, you feel a pressure to build the next book, and there's no endpoint on any of these games, right? Like, so there should be a point where you're like, oh, well, I've built the world. I've, everything necessary to run stories in this world are finished. So that's it. The game's done. That doesn't happen anywhere anymore. There's now always this Winchester house problem. And so Dungeons and Dragons, I would say two thirds of the material that they bring out is helpful and useful, right? But 1/3 of it you don't need, right? It's just there's definitely some books that Dungeons and Dragons has brought out that were unnecessary, and that is also the case on, like, for instance, the new Alien book, right? They just keep printing out, printing new ones. Pathfinder, definitely the same boat, right? I've been covering the top 20 most popular tabletop role-playing games of 2025, which is a list that uh, that Professor Dungeon Master put out, and every game on there has this problem. They're just this Winchester house problem. So what do we do now? What do we do about it? Well, I'm talking to you, and there's almost certainly some of you out there that are going to start an RPG company at some point and create an RPG. And I think what we need to start doing is, I would love for there to be one company who brings out a core rulebook, a freestanding, one-off core rulebook, never prints another product for it, and then goes on to make new stories, to make new tabletop role-playing games with new rule systems and with new what is it again? With new rule systems and with new stories, right? I just recently learned that the Cipher system is going to a new edition. That's going to be brutal. They had like 50 books, right? Is that going to be compatible with the old books? Highly unlikely, right? I doubt it. It's possible, but I doubt it. And also, even now, actually, I guess it might be fine. Well, no, I don't know. I was going to say 2024 core rulebooks really are compatible with all of the material from the past, but they're not a new edition. Cipher System is bringing out a new edition. Very, very interesting. So what do we do about this? I really feel we need some companies that make a all-in-one book. It's got everything you need to run, and then when they're done with that, they move on to make a new all-in-one book, right? Like, with a new setting, a new set of rules, new world, and there's not going to be any more for that, right? Because we always keep thinking that we need more and more and more. In the board game space, there are a lot of people who are like, every expansion makes every board game worse. And honestly, that's pretty true. It might be not true in a couple of exceptions, but generally, it's dead on correct. Every single word you just heard in this video is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.